Good morning, everybody. I'm Ron Trevino along with Steph Simmons in the KHOU 11 newsroom. This morning we have some horribly sad news about someone who was the face of Houston for 8 years as our mayor and a state leader, a national leader, you could say. Congressman Sylvester Turner has passed away.
Native Houstonian Sylvester Turner, we have just learned this information, and shortly before the city council meeting, current mayor John Whitmire announced the very sad news. Take a listen.
Not many people know how close Sylvester and I was. I was in the Senate 40 years. He was a state representative in my district for 24. No one's introduced me more in public than Sylvester Turner. No one's introduced him more in public.
This is John Whitmire shortly after he announced the news, talking in great detail about his longtime friend, Mayor Sylvester Turner, former mayor, who we've just learned has passed away. And Ron, we know that he just started his congressional seat for District 18 just on January 3rd of this year.
That's right. I think now we have the tape of the current mayor making the announcement this morning.
Council, come to order. It's my duty as the mayor to confirm that Congressman Sylvester Turner, our former mayor, state representative for 24 years, passed away last night. He was working in Washington and was taken to the hospital, and he passed. I've asked flags at City Hall, all city buildings, and encourage flags across Houston to be lowered to half-mast. This comes as a shock to everyone. I would ask Houstonians to come together, pray for his family, join us in celebrating this remarkable public servant, celebrate his life, which we will be doing.
Okay, so that was Mayor John Whitmire making the announcement this morning to other council members about the death of Sylvester Turner, a person who, through the years, I mean, we've interviewed him so many times through the years as a state rep, as the mayor, and touched so many lives here in Houston. He was 70 years old. He was born in Houston.
Yes, he was.
And
Acres Homes.
He grew up in Acres Homes. He was a valedictorian at Klein High School, went on to U of H and Harvard, spent his whole life in service of the public. We don't know the cause of death, but we do know that in 2022 rather, he announced that he had bone cancer in his jaw.
Yes, and we looked further into that, and he did confirm it's a very rare form of cancer he had. It was a cancer called osteosarcoma, and he did announce later that year that he was cancer-free. He underwent extensive surgery. They did reconstructive surgery to his jaw, and he had said that he was feeling better. We're just saying what we know from what he was dealing with in the past. We do not know yet in any way that that was connected to his cause of death now. That has not been released yet.
Yeah, we don't know the cause of death, but we do know that he had been dealing with this cancer fight for a number of years. Now, if you remember, he was filling the seat left vacant by the death of Sheila Jackson Lee, and he ran for that office, and he won. He was only in office since January. As you said, he was in Washington last night listening to the president's address to the nation,
yes,
to both houses of Congress.
Yes, the joint session of Congress. So he was there representing Houston and District 18, we do know that he was dear friends with the late Sheila Jackson Lee. So Houston has had some very, very sad months dealing with some deaths, very significant deaths in the Democratic Party. And as you said, Ron, he had just started his seat and said that he was only going to fill that term in honor of his late friend Sheila Jackson Lee. So he only made it a few months serving District 18. It's very sad.
Yeah, of course, we're working to find out more information about all this, and we have a reporter at City Hall, Victor Jacobo. We hope to have a live report from him in the next few minutes. But here's a man who spent decades in public service, 24, 25 years in the state legislature. Then he was the mayor of Houston from 2016 to 2024, carrying the city through hurricanes
Yes.
that we had, and through the pandemic.
And through the winter freeze as
through the
well.
winter freeze. There were so many crises that he led his city through.
He loved this city so much, and he always made himself available for us here at KHOU 11. I remember specifically during the winter freeze, we had him live when we were doing our breaking news coverage, and he was very honest with us about the preparations leading up to that, how he was going to fight for the people, make sure everyone was okay during an unprecedented event like that. He was very knowledgeable, having been born and raised here in Houston, about all of the hurricanes. He always spoke about the preparation plans, how to keep folks safe, how to prepare for an emergency like hurricanes. Harvey as well. Ron, you
Yes.
were there for that.
He was a powerhouse, full of energy and full of life, and he was the face of Houston. On the phone now, we have Jonathan Martin from our sister station in Atlanta. Jonathan, you were good friends with Sylvester Turner. Can you tell us about your relationship and your reaction today?
Having been born and raised here in Houston, without all
Jonathan, can you hear us?
always spoke about preparation plans.
Okay, we're having some trouble trying to get Jonathan Martin on the line. But obviously this morning we're trying to reach out to everybody who had a connection to Sylvester Turner, and that's so many people in Houston.
And before we got the news confirmed, we had heard that several people were crying at City Hall, learned of the news before we got that confirmed here in our newsroom. Just so sad, because he was a beloved fixture in the community and in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and even if you weren't a Democrat, on both sides of the aisle, he was a person that you would have to respect and acknowledge that he had just a remarkable life and cared about the community, and he loved Houston. He loved Houston. If you're just tuning in, here's the horrible news. Sylvester Turner has died at the age of 70. He was taken to the hospital last night in Washington. He was in attendance to for the president's speech last night. He was taken to the hospital where he died, and the announcement was made this morning at Houston City Hall at the council meeting by the current Mayor John Whitmire.
And we've learned that Mayor John Whitmire has asked for all flags to be flown at half staff across the city in honor of former Mayor Turner. We are right now awaiting a statement from his family. The news coming as such a shock to everyone, as he just started on January 3rd his new role as serving District 18 in the House of Representatives.
Yeah, survived by his daughter, Ashley Page Turner. So our thoughts and condolences to his family and all those who knew and loved Sylvester Turner. We're working to get more information about exactly what happened last night, the nature of his hospital. He had to be taken to the hospital, so we don't know anything about what preceded that. But we do know that he was in attendance last night as the president was giving his speech.
During his time in office as mayor, and even heading into the District 18, his new role, he always touted working for all of the people. He grew up in Acres Homes. He was born and raised in Houston, and then made his way. What an incredible success story, graduating from Harvard University as well as the University of Houston.
Yeah, and he had this leadership ability in the way he would speak. He was a great orator, and and a cheerleader for Houston, I would say. The way he spoke about Houston and his love for Houston, and galvanizing the city in times of crisis, like during a hurricane or during the pandemic or during an ice freeze, for instance, rallying everybody together and having a great relationship with the other governmental agencies in Houston, having a great relationship with the sheriff's department, with the Harris County judge.
Uniting
building
all
bridges
of the
there, yes.
Law
Yeah.
enforcement agencies, and he just was such a great man of the people. He always talked about the less fortunate and how to equalize everyone, and just left no one behind as far as a law and different things that would come into effect. And he was just such a charitable man as well.
And I think it says a lot too when we found out we were getting reports that he had passed away, and but we hadn't confirmed it yet. But we were told that everybody at City Council, before they went into the chamber, they were all in tears because of what Sylvester Turner meant to so many of them.
Our Victor Jacobo, our political reporter, is at City Council now, trying to speak with some of the former mayors, former colleagues, and see if they can get some stories, if they can share some words with us. But again, his cause of death has not been released. We do know that he was in Washington, D.C. at the time, taken to the hospital, as you had just mentioned, Ron. What we can confirm is, if you'll recall, back in 2022, he was diagnosed with a rare form of bone cancer called osteosarcoma. We do know that he went under extensive surgery to become cancer-free, which he did tell that to the Tribune back in 2022. So
yeah, he said he was
he's a blessed
cancer-free.
man.
He said he was cancer-free, but we all know how cancer can be.
Yes, and we don't know if that's related.
We don't know.
He could have had an illness. We don't know, but we do know that he had quite a struggle back in 2022 when he was dealing with that. So as we work to get some more phone interviews with former colleagues and possibly family, we respect their privacy at this shocking news, as we've just learned within the last hour of former Mayor Sylvester Turner's passing.
All right, let's try again to reach out by phone to Jonathan Martin, who was a good friend of the former mayor. Jonathan, can you hear us now? Hello, Jonathan Martin, can you hear us? Okay, well, we can continue to have problems with our phone lines, but we're reaching out to everybody who got a connection with the former mayor to get their thoughts and reflections. As the mayor said, the current mayor said, this is a time to celebrate his life, but there's also a lot of grieving going on. There will be a lot of grieving for a while for this man with a brilliant career.
And age 70, he passed at age 70. Young, and he could have retired his political career, but he chose to serve a term in District 18 after the passing of his late friend and dear friend Sheila Jackson Lee.
Well,
so
clearly he loved to
to
serve.
To honor her,
He loved to serve.
He
clearly loved to serve, and this raises a lot of questions about the strength of the Democratic Party in Washington, because obviously he was a major force. And then, of course, congressional seat 18, and filling that seat again.
And it was filled for decades by Sheila Jackson Lee, and they spoke of their dear friendship. And he became very emotional himself when she passed over the summer, and that was a sudden passing. She had a diagnosis herself, and then months later had passed very quickly. So.
I'm thinking of my own memories of the mayor, because I interviewed him when he was in a state rep for many years over whatever the issue might be. He was readily available for all reporters who needed an interview. And then, of course, his years as the mayor, for 8 years he led this city, and you wouldn't see him only at City Hall. You'd see him in all sorts of events. I would often go to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and some of their luncheons and other events, and Mayor Turner was always he was always there.
Yes.
Always making himself available to Hispanics in Houston, the Hispanic community.
He'd greet you with a hug and a handshake. I covered many events, and whether they were fun and lighthearted or downright serious, as you just mentioned, he would always make himself available. And I remember I was emceeing an event, and he was in attendance there. They were talking about a big children's charity event, and it was a room full of maybe 12 people.
Mm-hmm.
And he was giggling, laughing, took time to speak with everyone in attendance there, and then we had him on for a very long time talking about the winter freeze. We had an extensive interview with him, and he was very concerned about the people of Houston, and he made it known how he was working all night, sleepless nights, trying to get more resources to this city, because we're used to hurricanes here, but not a freeze like that. So he wouldn't stop until we got what we needed as a city to recover from that.
Yeah, he was relentless in his leadership, but going back to just seeing him at events around town. Sadly, I hadn't seen him. I hadn't seen Sylvester Turner since 2 Thanksgivings ago. It was for the Thanksgiving Day parade, 2 parades ago, and he had a bright red outfit. I mean, he was really proud of the outfit that he had for the holidays. But and Sylvester Turner was also he was so affable. I'd be at an event, and I didn't even know that Sylvester Turner was there, and I'd get a tap on my shoulder.
Oh, yes.
And it was him.
He'd come right up to you.
And he'd give you a hug.
Yes.
So you can see why so many people are sad today, because it's not just the loss of a politician; it's the loss of someone who you felt was part of your life. And again, to be the mayor of Houston for 8 years, you were basically the face of Houston to the world.
Yeah, he had run for mayor on several occasions and had lost, and then came back and won first and then second term, but he never fought. He never gave up the fight.
He never did.
When he tried it the first time, the second. So a very long career here in Houston and in politics. And politics aside, he was just a kind, warm-hearted man who would just give anyone a hug and a handshake.
Yeah, even if you were a Republican and didn't care for his policies, you had to respect him. And if you're just tuning in, if you're just joining us, we have the sad news today that Sylvester Turner, who had been the U.S. Rep for Texas District 18 since January, our former mayor, he passed away last night in Washington, D.C. He was sent to the hospital and he died. He was in attendance during the president's speech last night, was taken to the hospital, and he passed away. And the news was confirmed this morning by Mayor John Whitmire, who made the announcement this morning at City Council.
And he had a long, extensive career here in Houston, but also all across the country. In March of 2020, he was endorsed by former President Joe Biden, so big names backing the former mayor. He had quite support in the Democratic Party. And we are waiting to hear more from City Council, some of his former colleagues there. Our own Victor Jacobo, our political correspondent, is there now on scene trying to get some more information. The cause of death has not been released at this time, but as we've been telling you this morning when we came on at 9 o'clock here on our streaming, we did know that back in 2022, he did get a diagnosis of cancer. He underwent surgery and then was cancer-free in the same year.
Yes, and we still don't know if that had anything to do with his passing last night. But again, he was born and raised in Houston, Acres Homes area. He went to U of H, went to Harvard. He ran for mayor back in 1991, but he lost the runoff to Bob Lanier. He would run again, and then he would eventually become mayor in 2016. Of course, between those running for mayor was him being in Austin, representing the area in Austin.
And he was a big advocate of many issues, including LGBTQ rights. He really stood for that community as well, and that really came to light in 2015. He was a big advocate. Consumer protections was one of his platforms as well, to note many things. Public education, he spoke a lot about that, and was trying to get many bills passed and come to the light as far as Houston being at the forefront of public education.
Yeah. So being raised in Northwest Houston, his father was a commercial painter. His mother was a maid at the Rice Hotel, the old Rice Hotel. We mentioned that he went to Klein High School. He was the valedictorian there, and he would go on to University of Houston, go on to Harvard, and then the rest was his starting of the law practice and then entering the world of politics, which he never left. He never left the world of politics, leading the Houston area, leading Texans in Austin, and then for, well, 2 months, 3 months, representing us in Washington.
And yeah, for District 18, taking over the late Sheila Jackson Lee's seat, of course, then was followed by her daughter, Erica Lee Carter, and then Sylvester Turner took over District 18 and that seat. January 3rd of this year, so a very short tenure with his new position there, but at age 70 was still going strong in politics, in the political scene, not only here in the Houston area, but all across the country. So we do know that he was in Washington, D.C. for President Trump's joint session of speech with Congress last night. We know that something happened. He was taken to the hospital, and then we learned of his passing earlier this morning.
Of course, we're trying to get more information on the response from the city of Houston. We heard from the mayor earlier, the current mayor earlier today, saying that the flags should be at half staff for a while. You would assume there'd be a big public memorial for the former mayor, and maybe one here for sure, and maybe one in Washington as well. We have to look into also filling the seat of the 18th Congressional District as well, and what the future lies there.
Yes, but today a time for mourning as folks are just waking up to this news, turning us on and learning of former Mayor Sylvester Turner's passing. We were talking about earlier when he was the mayor, how he really made it a point to make sure that everyone was accounted for, not only wealthier people here, but also the less fortunate. Former Mayor Turner, coming from Acres Homes himself, one of the platforms that he stood on, he really made it notable how he felt about the homeless crisis here in our county.
In fact, it was seen as a model for the rest of the nation. I remember the New York Times came down here and interviewed him about what are you guys doing in Houston about the homeless, and now it is a model for the rest of the country as well. Good representative for Houston in terms of what he did for the city as a cheerleader. I keep coming back to the word cheerleader for how he his relationship with the city and how he felt so deeply about what Houston had to offer. In terms of an international city, a city of the future, and setting trends, and being good neighbors to each other, from people from all sorts of backgrounds, being able to get along so easily in Houston, and everybody feeling so welcome to move to Houston.
And he always showcased that at the Thanksgiving Day Parade. Of course, you longtime host of that with our own Deborah Duncan, but he was always out there, one of the first people out there, just shaking hands, kissing babies, out there doing his thing. But we always got to, on that day, we always got to see the lighter side of the former mayor.
He always had a great sense of humor.
He was a fun guy. Yes, he was a funny guy.
And we're running some clips of our anchor Len Cannon interviewing the mayor a couple of years ago. About what the future held for him and his battle with cancer, as he's pointing to his jaw, telling everybody a couple of years ago that he was cancer-free.
Yes, and he was pointing to his jaw because when he got the cancer diagnosis, if you'll recall, he told us back in 2022 that he just had an innocent trip to the dentist, which is where he found some abnormalities, and then ended up undergoing extensive surgery, I believe, to his leg, and they took part of that to reconstruct his jaw. So over the past few years, you'll have seen the former mayor, he lost a lot of weight. His speech changed a little bit with that surgery, but it did help. He was later in the year announced that he was cancer-free, but they took part of that and then reconstructed his jaw and got rid of the cancer there. So the surgery was a huge success, and he told the Tribune, quote, "I am blessed. I am blessed."
But so many years in public service, more than 25 years in the Texas House of Representatives, a member of the Legislative Budget Board, Vice Chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, Chairman of the Subcommittee of Articles 1, 4, 5, General Government, Judiciary, Public Safety, Criminal Justice. The list goes on and on of all the committees that he took part in and all his accomplishments in Austin and here in Houston.
All right, we want to go back to some sound now. Earlier this morning, the current mayor, John Whitmire, announcing before the City Hall meeting began today of the passing of the former mayor, and then he shared some very sentimental moments, memories about the former mayor. Take a listen.
Not many people know how close Sylvester and I was. I was in the Senate 40 years. He was a state representative in my district for 24. No one's introduced me more in public than Sylvester Turner. No one's introduced him more in public than John Whitmire. We've been together in good times and bad times. He asked me to speak at his mother's funeral. I was there when Ashley was born. He was there when Whitney and Sarah were born. As recently as 2 weeks ago, we were together as friends, as public servants, installing F.M. Williams II in Acres Home a week ago Sunday. We made sure that we were both in the same picture with the family. We had tremendous influence on each other as we were young elected officials. He and I both loved Houston, we loved Texas, and this great country.
Sad remarks there from the current mayor as he describes his relationship with Sylvester Turner. As he described it, a very close one, and obviously he had seen him just a few days ago, making the news of his death all the more shocking when you see somebody and then all of a sudden they're gone. All of a sudden they're gone.
Yeah,
but he echoes what a lot of us have to say and think about Sylvester Turner and how he touched our lives through the years.
Yes, Mayor Whitmire also saying flags to be flown at half-staff across the city in honor of former Mayor Sylvester Turner. We do have our political correspondent, Victor Jacobo, at City Council right now, or City Hall, and he is trying to collect some sound from former colleagues and friends, family of former Mayor Sylvester Turner, so we'll have that coming for you shortly. Actually, we have that right now. Take a listen.
Steph and Ron, Houston City Council right now in a 1-hour recess after Mayor John Whitmire took some time today to announce that Congressman and former Houston Mayor and former State Representative Sylvester Turner passed away last night. Mayor Whitmire sharing some details of what he knows, saying that Turner had died in Washington, D.C. last night after being taken to a hospital. During those remarks, the mayor thought about his memories with Sylvester Turner, both of them longtime representatives of different offices here in the Houston area. Mayor John Whitmire sharing his fond memories of, while at times maybe being in disagreements, they would always come back to their love for Houston and their commitment to public service. As to why they really need to keep that relationship going, he described him as a mentor and as an advisor, really touting Sylvester Turner's experience. He also talked about how he had just seen him at a recent rodeo event and lamenting the fact that this happened so suddenly, and really telling council that this is a reminder of the fragility of life and to hug those that you love. Council member Willie Davis shared a prayer for council for Sylvester Turner after his passing. They also held a moment of silence, and right now what's happening is that there is a 1-hour recess. They'll be coming back around 10 a.m. This was a scheduled city council meeting. Mayor Whitmire saying that he did reach out to the family of Sylvester Turner, asking them how to proceed. Mayor Whitmire saying that the family had told him that Turner would have wanted the city council to move forward with its business, with that of doing what's best for the city of Houston. And so certainly more information to come once city council does complete its meeting today. Certainly many moving pieces into what comes next in terms of honoring the life of Mayor Turner. Mayor Whitmire announcing that flags will be at half-staff at all city buildings to honor Sylvester Turner. And so they'll keep monitoring that, and we'll be doing that as well here, and we'll keep you posted later today on KHOU 11. For now, reporting live in Houston City Council, Victor Jacobo, KHOU 11 News. Ron, Steph, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Victor Jacobo at City Hall for us this morning, and you can see all the empty chairs behind Victor. That one in the middle was once filled by former Mayor Houston Sylvester Turner, and he had that seat for 8 years.
He had it for 8 years, so they're going to take a 1 hour break and then resume business, but they're going to have to do so with heavy hearts. It's going to be very tough for them to go on doing the city's business and voting on articles and ordinances this morning, but they're going to go back to work in an hour. So if you're just joining us, Sylvester Turner has died at the age of 70. He died last night in Washington, D.C. He was taken to the hospital where he died. He was the mayor of Houston for 8 years, but we've gathered some facts in this life well lived, this fascinating, remarkable life of Sylvester Turner. Now, he had been elected to the 18th Congressional District, seat historically held by civil rights leaders like Barbara Jordan, Mickey Leland, Craig Washington, and so many years by Sheila Jackson Lee. He earned a BA in political science at the University of Houston and went on to Harvard Law School. He started as a trial lawyer for Fulbright Jaworski, the famous law firm here, then co-founded Barnes & Turner, and then he served 27 years in the Texas House of Representatives.
Well-educated man,
Yes.
Very well-educated man to go from University of Houston to Harvard, and I just love that, just reminding folks that he was born and raised in Houston, but grew up in Acres Homes and then graduated from Harvard. What an incredible ride. And we just went through a few key points of his long career, personal and professional, and there's so many more to go. Mayor of Houston, he was elected as Houston's 62nd mayor in 2015, re-elected for a second term. We all remember this back in 2019.
Yeah, he was there, as we said earlier, during a lot of the crises that we've had in Houston. Boy, we've had our share of crises, haven't we? In the past 10 or 20 years. He was here for Harvey. He was here for the pandemic. He was here for the ice storm, and when we all lost power and didn't have water for days.
Yeah, I remember talking with him while we were live in extended coverage about the winter storm, and we were mentioning this earlier, Ron. He was well informed on what the city needed to do, the evacuation plans, the emergency plans for hurricane after hurricane, Harvey included, but when it came to that winter freeze that was unprecedented here in Houston, he gave us so much of his time live on the air. I remember the back and forth with him, and I said, Mayor Turner, were we prepared for this? And he was very honest. He said no.
Yeah.
And he said, but I will tell you what, we will get every resource available, and I will not stop until this city is safe and we've recovered from this and everyone is taken care of.
And he had a way of speaking. He made you feel comfortable.
Yes, he did.
He made you feel like we're on the case.
Made you feel like a friend.
Yes, he did make you feel like a friend.
Yes.
On to a few other accomplishments. He worked on pension reform for the city, successfully reducing the Houston's pension liabilities by billions of dollars, resolving a long-standing financial issue. He worked on climate leadership for the city as well, launching Houston's first climate action plan, committing to carbon neutrality by the year 2050. He chaired the Global Resilient Cities Network and served as chair of the U.S. Climate Mayors.
Yes, and public safety also a key for him while he was serving as mayor, and community initiatives. We were talking about how embedded he was in the community. It was not just a job for him. He was born and raised here, and he made sure that he took care of the poorest in the city to the richest in the city and everyone in between. He created One Safe Houston to tackle violent crime and mental health challenges, which we still have today. Led One Clean Houston to combat illegal dumping and improve neighborhood safety. He launched Complete Communities, which was a revitalization effort for underserved neighborhoods. He developed Higher Houston Youth, providing over 20,000 jobs to young adults.
Yeah, and he was a national leader as well. He served as the chair of the African American Mayors Association, representing our city. He acted as a trustee of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Sylvester Turner was all over the place in terms of serving the community.
It's survived by his daughter Ashley, and we're sure she is just very sad learning of the news.
Thoughts and prayers to his family and everybody
absolutely.
who knew and loved him, and that's so many people here in town.
Because City Council, we told you earlier, they had been told before it was confirmed here in our newsroom, but we did learn and heard rumblings of lots of watery eyes, lots of crying there at City Council before the meeting, because they weren't only former colleagues, former Mayor Sylvester Turner's, they were also friends.
Yes, and he was so active in the community in so many different areas of the community, the different arenas of the Houston community as a whole. I talked to you earlier, and I told you earlier how I would always see him at events involving the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. He would always be there.
And this was a post-surgery. You're taking a look at video here, and he would talk extensively about the jaw surgery he had after he learned of a rare form of bone cancer. So they did extensive surgery, and you could see his facial features were changed a bit after the surgery, but it was a success. He announced later in the year that he was cancer-free. We do not know, I should mention, the official cause of death yet. It sounded like it came as quite a surprise to folks in Washington and here in Houston. He was in Washington, D.C. for the joint session of Congress, a speech from President Trump. We do know that something happened, and they moved him to the hospital where they announced his death earlier this morning.
Okay, let's go to some sound we have from Houston City Council member Carolyn Shabazz.
Well, actually, when I saw it, I was opening my phone and I looked down and I read the text and I was like, no. And I immediately called Mayor Pro Tem, who confirmed it. And what I can say is it's a tremendous shock. You know, life is filled with swift transition. You just never know what you're going to hear day by day. That's why it's important to live your life as if it could be the last time that you see someone. What I remember most about him was his personality and how personable he was. There was not a time that we were not in the public arena that he didn't talk to people and embrace their issues. And certainly he would remember, in a lot of cases, those concerns, and he would move accordingly. And so we didn't always agree, but most of the time we did. But at the end of the day, we had a tremendous love and respect for each other, that we could share a laugh. And the last time I saw him was probably about a week and a half ago. I was at a meeting and we were leaving, and I mentioned to him that this friend that we both know had had a stroke and that she wasn't far from there. And he said, I'm gonna go by there today. He got there before I did, but that's the kind of person he was. In my personal life, he helped my family with a personal crisis. My younger brother was terminally ill, and we were having difficulty getting him into a medical facility. And he stepped in to help us to be able to do that, to give my brother quality of life before he passed. And so one of the most important things about being elected is you must have a love, a true love for people, and have the common touch. He certainly had that. He has a new grandbaby who will be able to read about her grandfather and see him. It's a tremendous loss that she won't be able to feel his hugs again, because he loved her tremendously. And so this is a great loss. He was a family man first, then the community, then city, state, and then most recently our national government. But certainly he was the best person for the job. We never know when we will be called home, and I'm glad that he was given the opportunity to serve until his final breath.
Wow, emotional words there from Carolyn Shabazz of Houston City Council, and talking about the love and respect that people had for Sylvester Turner and how he had the common touch. Nobody will disagree with that, I don't think.
It was beautiful. She was mentioning a mutual friend who was ill, and he said, I'm going to go see that person, and made it there immediately. So just goes to show you, no matter how busy someone is, they make time for what's important. And she said, quote, he was a family man first. We have more reaction coming in now of the news of former Mayor Sylvester Turner's passing. Texas House Speaker Dustin Burrows said, quote, "Elizabeth and I are saddened to hear the news of Congressman Sylvester Turner's passing. His decades of public service from the halls of the legislature to Houston City Hall and most recently our nation's capital leave behind a legacy of leadership and advocacy for the people of Houston." And we mentioned earlier that Sylvester Turner was a graduate of the University of Houston, and something coming in from the university now. UH mourns the passing of Sylvester Turner, congressman, former mayor, and a proud UH alum. His legacy will live through those lives who are better because of his leadership.
Yeah, he was a kook. I would see him at games and pep rallies supporting the Cougs. Here's another statement. "I'm saddened to hear the passing of my colleague, Congressman Sylvester Turner. I am thinking of his family and the city of Houston at this difficult time." That's from Congressman Don Davis.
So many more people sharing their thoughts as they hear of the passing of the former mayor. We will share those with you shortly. But for now, if you are just joining us, welcome to our special edition of KHOU 11 News on our streaming platform. I'm Stephanie Simmons alongside Ron Trevino, where this morning, about an hour ago, we learned of the passing of former Mayor Sylvester Turner. He served as our mayor here in Houston for 8 years.
Yeah, we were waiting for confirmation. We've been hearing reports of that, hints that he had passed away, but we didn't get it confirmed until this morning by the current mayor, John Whitmire. He made the announcement to City Council.
Council, come to order. It's my duty as the mayor to confirm that Congressman Sylvester Turner, our former mayor, state representative for 24 years, passed away last night. He was working in Washington and was taken to the hospital and he passed. I've asked flags at City Hall, all city buildings, and encourage flags across Houston to be lowered to half-mast. This comes as a shock to everyone. I would ask Houstonians to come together, pray for his family, join us in celebrating this remarkable public servant, celebrate his life, which we will be doing. You know,
Emotional City Council meeting this morning where Mayor John Whitmire announcing the death of former Mayor Sylvester Turner. You could tell the emotion in his voice. He would go on to say that they were close colleagues. They spent a lot of time in Austin together, and he succeeded him as mayor of Houston. And
based on the emotion you saw and folks crying around the current mayor, John Whitmire, you could tell it came as quite a shock to those there in City Council. We have our own political correspondent, Victor Jacobo, live at City Hall for us now. Victor's on the phone with us. Victor, you've been getting reaction from former colleagues and friends of the former mayor. What have they been telling you?
Yeah, that's right. You know, I've been able to speak with folks. What's happening right now is there was a scheduled meeting here for City Council to take up the regular business. But as we saw, Mayor John Whitmire took up some time to make some remarks regarding the passing of Sylvester Turner. What they're doing now is they've taken a 1-hour recess before they continue their work. And the mayor said that he had reached out to the family of Sylvester Turner to ask how they would want City Council to proceed, and they told him that they would want them to continue the work of running the city of Houston, the city that Sylvester Turner very much admired and was a committed civil servant to for decades.
Victor,
so I spoke a few times. Yes, please go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. What were you going to say?
No, yeah, I spoke in a hallway with District D Representative Councilmember Carolyn Evans Shabazz, and she had talked to me about how they were very close, and she touted Sylvester Turner's character and really wanting to make a personal touch with people that he didn't even know, just constituents that he would meet every single day. But she also talked about how he would help his close colleagues and friends with some personal matters, just showing how he truly cared for those around him, and beyond just a committed civil servant, but also a very dear close friend. And the loss is felt pretty strongly here.
Victor, can you give us an idea of what the scene was like before the mayor made the announcement and after? Can you give us any feel for that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, this was a typical Wednesday morning meeting for City Council, the typical hustle and bustle of City Hall as folks were kind of coming in. But once the news had kind of spread amongst the colleagues, definitely a more somber note. And you had heard some of the remarks there by Mayor John Whitmire, taking a really somber tone of really remembering the life of someone who dedicated really long period of time of public service to the city of Houston and the community surrounding it. And so, and even as, some of the council members right now are gathering in, you see some of them, with prayerful minds and clasping their hands together in prayer. We saw one council member, shedding some tears. And speaking with Councilmember Evans Shabazz, she was, just taking a moment. She said she was still processing it, and that when she saw it on her phone initially, the news come across, that she didn't believe it, and that she had to check with one of her colleagues to really confirm it. And so I think many folks here are still processing it.
Yeah, and you can tell the shock and the sadness, and when you use words like processing it came as quite a surprise for friends and former colleagues about former Mayor Turner's passing. Victor Jacobo, thank you so much. We will check back in with you in just a little bit, and you can see just a shot of the empty chairs, the mostly empty chairs where they took a short recess earlier to process everything and the news that they just heard.
You can sense the mood there at City Hall echoed throughout the city. It's a shock for all of us. It's a shock for all of us.
Ugochi Uloka joins us now with more about former Mayor Turner's passing.
Yeah, Stephan and Ron, we're all still in shock here in the newsroom as we're getting the news about his passing. And just a couple of minutes ago, as Victor was talking about how we talked to a few city council women and men about Turner's passing, we know City Councilwoman Tiffany Thomas, who's over District F, just a few minutes ago, she texted me. She wanted me to share her response on KQ11 here, and she says, there will be another Sylvester Turner. His public service to the city of Houston and the state of Texas will be forever remain unmatched. And she said they can go on and on about the late night calls that they had and negotiations and the laughs that they shared while dealing with some pretty difficult times. Thomas also said that she wouldn't change one thing about Turner, and she also went on to say that that she is a better public servant because he served, and that she's completely heartbroken. Wow. She says this is really devastating for all of them. Victor just talked about their response. I think the biggest shock is that Turner was there last night in D.C. With one of his constituents, Angela Hernandez, who was representing her daughter as a rare genetic disorder who is a recipient of Medicaid. His message was, don't mess with Medicaid. That really came to shock because there he was talking last night with them. And then we hear about his passing this morning. We actually do have that clip, and we can roll it now if you could take a listen and see that interaction there between the two.
This is Angela Hernandez, my guest tonight for the State of the Union. Angela is here to advocate on the importance of Medicaid.
I'm Angela, I'm from Houston, District 18. My daughter is Baisley Garcia. She's 2 years old. She has a rare genetic disorder, chromosome 8p, inversion duplication deletion. Causes a lot of developmental and medical challenges. So losing Medicaid would be devastating to us.
So please let people know, don't mess with Medicaid.
So that was Mayor Turner last night.
Just last night.
His voice does sound weak.
It does sound weak.
It sounds different, notably thinner as well. Yeah. Again, we have to say this, we do not know the cause of death, but we do know that 3 years ago, he did undergo surgery to his jaw for a rare form of bone cancer. So that is why his appearance looks a little different, but noticeably a little bit more muffled when he was speaking.
That is what people noticed. However, I think the biggest thing is he was just up talking last night.
He was there.
Yeah,
He
still
was
working
there.
though.
Yeah.
That's to be noted as well, right?
He was there talking about this and posting this, and then a few hours later he was gone.
Right.
That's so sad.
A big disbelief. You know, earlier you all showed a little clip of when our Lynn Cannon had talked to him last year as he was running to take Sheila's seat after her passing. He did speak a little bit about his health at the time, giving an update saying his doctors had said it was okay to run. He even talked about that he was going to serve 2 years if he got the seat. But here we are talking about his passing this morning. We do have that clip of that meeting with Lynn Cannon, if we could take a look now.
Only the passing of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee at this critical time
would get you in.
Would get me in.
7 months after leaving the mayor's office, Sylvester Turner says he's now ready to run for the congressional seat held by his longtime friend for nearly 30 years. But he told me if he is chosen by precinct judges to be on the November ballot and wins, he has no intention of staying in Washington for very long.
If you are to become the next congressman in the 18th district, how long do you think you would serve? 1 term? You got to be reelected?
Maximum, I would say, Lynn, maximum for 2. Maximum.
So a total of 4 years.
Yeah, maximum.
Turner believes his decades in the state legislature and 8 years as Houston mayor give him the connections to be a force in Congress right now, and what he calls a bridge of stability until the next person is elected. Then there are questions about his health.
You had your own battle with cancer 2 years ago. People are wondering, are you healthy enough to run for Congress?
Well, number one, I would not be running if I were not healthy.
Are you healthy enough?
And I am healthy enough. I asked my doctor, I said, is there any reason why I should not? He said, no.
In 2022, Turner was diagnosed with bone cancer in his left jaw, which was reconstructed. Doctors then put a metal bar in his jaw. He had to wear this mask for 6 weeks of radiation treatment. He says the metal had an adverse reaction to the radiation, which explains how the jaw looks now.
What you see right now is where they went in and removed the metal bar, and this is a skin patch flap that eventually gradually goes down.
Do you have the stamina to meet the demands in Congress?
I think people have seen me. I have not stopped.
Turner believes a decision will be made on a candidate before the Democratic National Convention starts on August 19th. Len Cannon, KHOU 11 News.
So this was last year, before Sylvester Turner won that seat,
right.
and he took over that seat in January.
That's right. So he just been serving a few months, obviously before his passing, and you heard it there. He said his doctor says he was well enough to serve. Planned to do it 2 years. Of course, we find out today that won't be the case anymore.
You can't help but notice he looked so much healthier a year ago.
Yes, he sure did.
He looks so much healthier.
Yeah.
All right, we'll talk to you a bit later. Thanks you so much, Agochi.
Right.
Thanks,
Agochi. Okay, on the phone now we have Doug Griffith, who is the VP of the Houston Police Officers Union. Doug, good morning. Thank you for your time with us this morning. Talk to us about your relationship with the former mayor.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me. And prayers to Sylvester's family, his daughter, and all those the friends that we know will miss him. We've had a long-standing relationship with Mayor Turner. Congressman Turner. And again, he's always been a class act. He has always supported law enforcement. Him, along with our current mayor, helped us get our meet and confer process, which is how we bargain our contract. And he has always been just solid right behind us. In 2020, when everybody was talking about defund the police and all this, he wasn't even going to hear that. He come in, not only did he bargain a contract with us during that time, but he did everything he could to get more cadets in the seats. And he has always been a supporter of ours, as we have been of his.
Were there any things of note that he said to really confirm that he was completely behind your union?
Oh, he came to our meetings. He had been to several of our meetings. Was always a class act. We never really, we don't agree on everything politically, but he was always steadfast in his support for law enforcement. Always positive too. That was the one thing. You always saw him with a smile on his face. Even if you disagreed, he would just smile and move on. And that's rare in today's politics. It really is.
Doug, can you tell us anything about just your personal relationship with Sylvester Turner and your dealings personally with him?
Well, I saw him Saturday. I was working the rodeo parade, and he was just, as always, "Hey, Doug, how you doing? How's the family?" My entire family has met him. My parents had pictures with him years ago. We've all just known him, and he's always just very, very personable, remembers people, had a great memory for remembering who individuals were. Again, he's always been in class with us, always had a really good relationship with him, and it is a loss for our city.
So you actually saw him at the rodeo parade this weekend?
Yes, sir. He was on a carriage, and just a quick conversation as they were rolling down the street. But he looked a little frail, but he was just his usual boisterous self, just talking and having a good time.
He was Sylvester Turner to the end, apparently.
Absolutely.
All right, Doug Griffith, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Y'all have a blessed day.
Thank you so much, Doug. If you're just joining us, we want to give you the sad news that Sylvester Turner, the former mayor of Houston and Congressman now, Sylvester Turner, since January, he died last night in Washington, D.C. After attending the address by President Trump.
At the age of 70, and as you heard his friend, Doug Griffith, who was just on the phone with us, say he was out in the public attending rodeo festivities this weekend and then was just in D.C., so a full schedule. And Doug had mentioned his friend looked a little bit frail, but again, we don't know the cause of death. We do know that after that joint session of Congress with President Trump and his speech, that the former mayor had been taken to the hospital, was not feeling well, and then we learned of his passing earlier this morning. We did hear from other former friends or former colleagues and friends, including Texas House Speaker Dustin Burrows, who gave us a quote about his friends. He said, quote, "Elizabeth and I are saddened to hear the news of Congressman Sylvester Turner's passing. His decades of public service from the halls of the legislature to Houston City Hall and most recently our nation's capital leave behind a legacy of leadership and advocacy for the people of Houston."
Yeah, U of H mourns the passing of Sylvester Turner, Congressman, former mayor, and proud U of H alum. His legacy will live through those lives who are better because of his leadership. I'm saddened to hear the passing of my colleague, Congressman Sylvester Turner. I am thinking of his family and the city of Houston at this difficult time. That comes from Congressman Don Davis.
Then Harris County Commissioner Rodney Ellis, who serves Precinct 1, issued this statement saying, quote, "My sincere condolences to Ashley, his daughter, and the Turner family. Houston mourns the loss of our servant leader, proud Native son, dedicated father, and dear friend. Thank you, Sylvester Turner, for all you have gave of yourself to serve Houston, Texas, and this nation. We the people are all better off because you chose to dedicate yourself to a life of public service. You also advanced the continuous struggle to make this nation as good as its promise of freedom and justice for all."
The city of Houston is sending condolences to its former mayor on behalf of John Whitmire, sharing on X this morning, quoting Whitmire as saying, "A remarkable public servant who impacted millions of people. He rose from poverty, but never forgot where he came from. It is a terrible loss for the city and a personal loss for me. I ask Houstonians to celebrate his life." The post included a photo of Whitmire and Turner recently attending church together. There's the photo right there.
So many friends and
Yes.
family reaching out to us today to share their condolences. On the phone now, we have Jonathan Martin, who is a longtime friend of former Congressman Turner, and we want to bring him on now. Jonathan, can you share about your relationship with former Mayor Turner?
Well, good morning, guys. It's really good to be with you all, but not under these circumstances, certainly. But yeah, I was, as many of you may know, I was a news anchor at another station in Houston for about 7 years, and also got to know Mayor Turner pretty well, both in a professional capacity, but also later on as a friend. And it's just heartbreaking. And I know
Okay.
some people have said today.
Jonathan, we're going to have to interrupt right now. The Harris County Judge Lita Hidalgo is speaking. Let's go to that if we can.
Passing, totally surprised and taken aback by what's happened. And you have to remember, he's been a leader in the community pretty much his entire career. So the number of people that he has mentored, that he has served with, that he has served is enormous. I myself am just in shock. He and I went through a lot together, from the COVID and winter freeze and all kinds of disasters to the Astros wins and the parade and so many experiences. So on a personal note, I really loved him, appreciated his respect for me and his support of me. And on behalf of the county, our deepest condolences to his family and to so many people that he touched. I've spent the morning speaking on the phone with all kinds of people who are just as devastated. And one thing I like to say, we'd always laugh about this. We had this line that, how is it possible that a kid from Acres Homes and an immigrant kid become the mayor and the county executive of places, Houston, as large as Houston, Harris County, and so, that's still true that we achieved that, and we'll get through this together as a community in the days that come.
You kind of alluded to it as judge and former mayor, the partnership. You all had to work closely to get things moving day to day. Kind of talk to us a little bit about that legacy, that partnership you two had together.
It's what makes it so hard to really process that he's gone, because I worked with him so closely, and he stood up for me. He stood by my side during my re-election. I stood by his side during his elections, and through the difficult times, we became friends. I mean, people always talked about our differences of opinion during COVID, and of course they were there, but you have to learn to respect each other and work together. And I heard from so many people that for decades the relationship between Harris County and the city of Houston was weak, and that of course was to the detriment of the people of the community. So we were very proud that even though we had different perspectives on some things, we had different backgrounds, we were able to work that through and work together. I mean, just imagine trying to figure out how to navigate a pandemic. It was intensive. Our staffs became very close. I've been reaching out to some of his staff as well, because I know them too, and vice versa. So that's why I keep saying a shock, because I don't think I quite have processed it right now. And he's somebody that I was getting ready to work with now that he was in the Congress, and I thought it was just a perfect capstone for his career. So I'm devastated. His friends are, I know his constituents are, and we'll just have to find out, exactly what happened.
You kind of alluded to it here that in most of his adult life has been serving others in his role in the state legislature as mayor and then Congress member. Talk to us a little bit about what legacy does Sylvester Turner leave?
Well, first, a legacy of service, really dedicating his life to this. But just remember, he's a graduate of Harvard Law School. He's somebody who could have gone and worked at a firm and made all the money, and instead he decided to serve his community. He was elected very young to the state house, and so he always mentored young people. He really wanted to lift the future generations because he was one of those young people that came in fresh with a fresh perspective and really grew from there. And so I think he leaves, of course, a legacy of service, a legacy of leadership, but also a legacy through all the people that he supported, all the young people that he mentored, and just a big hole in our hearts and in Harris County. I mean, we expected for him to be in the Congress for a good few years.
What are some of those qualities from him that you kind of took on as you watched him in his various roles that you've taken up as judge?
Well, his oratory was one of them. So I enjoy public speaking, and so oftentimes he would go first and then I would go, or vice versa. And so we'd watch each other's speeches. I mean, I just knew his stump and he knew mine, and he would start out just real quiet, and almost subdued, and then he would just turn into a preacher almost. And it was just, you'd be totally enraptured by his speaking. His love of community, that is something that we both enjoyed when we had the opportunity to be out in the community together. It was great. He loved to do the shuffle and the Cupid shuffle and just being yourself. That's something that I'm really proud of, and I like to bring to my role is, let's just be people. And he did that. He was brave enough to do that, and I had, I came in fresh, and so I had conversations with him about, hey, how did you structure your office? How do you handle this kind of thing? And I remember, the first meeting I had the day after my election was with him, and I was a guest of his at City Hall, and we chatted, and we said, we don't know each other, but let's work together. And the first thing we did together was appoint the chairman of the port, who's just been a fantastic leader. So I think we made a lot of good decisions together. We certainly did our very best. Sometimes, you think you're making the best decision, and it turns out not to be the best one in retrospect. But we did our very, very best, and kind of feeling each other out. He's much older than I am, completely different background, long time in politics. I'm here, new, an unknown quantity, and so it was just a real interesting time for us. But we quickly both settled into, what, we got to work together. And I mean, within 3 months of taking office, we were standing together because of the ITC fire. The city lent us their air monitoring equipment. We didn't have it at the time, and that was the precedent for years of work together.
What are you going to miss most about him? I know that you said that you're still processing this, but what are you going to miss most?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think just his presence everywhere. You would just see him everywhere, and it was the kind of thing where we would gravitate toward each other because we knew each other well. And so it was sort of that comfort of, you're always, as a public servant, as a politician, you go to so many events and you never know what you're going to encounter. And so you sort of got this armor, right? Just to steel yourself for whatever's coming your way. But whenever I saw him, okay, here's a friendly face. Here's someone I'm going to just go stand by, say a quick hello, and I know we're in this together. And I want to think it was the same for him. And we'd joke and we'd just sort of have our own little inside jokes. So I saw him last, probably not even 2 weeks ago, and it was the same thing. I was telling him about some funny story that had just happened to me prior, and so I'll miss his laugh too. He had a real funny laugh. He really did.
What does this mean for the Harris County Democratic Party? This loss.
It's just been a brutal year, a brutal few months. Many party figures, certainly locally, and representatives to our various levels of government. It's you can never really explain tragedy, right? And people think about it differently and according to their faith. But it's been a really hard year for us as a party, and that's no secret. So this is certainly not. This is certainly not something we expected, but the conversations I keep having is we're going to get through this together. It is, when I first heard of his passing, my thought was, I got to call the Congresswoman, see how she's doing. Well, she died last year, and so, oh my goodness, it's almost hard to believe. But, such is life. And so we are all focused on supporting his daughter, those that were closest to him. As I said, my colleague, Commissioner Ellis, they were very, very close. I mean, they knew each other since they were, before they were in elective office, probably before they even went to college. And so he's heading to D.C. with his daughter, and then the rest of us are here, ready to support them and just supporting each other as we get through this.
What would your message be to the folks in the 18th Congressional District? You just kind of mentioned that this is now the second biggest loss for the folks in that district, losing, their representative. What would your message be to those folks?
It is an historic district. It is a district that has been through a lot and seen a lot of positive changes. And this is a time of absolute tragedy. But I think the district is nothing if not strong. And it's a tight-knit community. It's a series of tight-knit communities, and we're all going to be focused to see how we can best support those folks. But there is still a representation. Certainly, they're all my constituents. And we're here, just as this goes on, we're watching out. If anything takes place, we're ready to jump in. Español?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, everybody. We've been listening live to the Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo, who she basically hit it on the head. She hit on all the points that resonate with so many people in Houston and Harris County. She talked about all the disasters that she shared as a partner with then Mayor Sylvester Turner. Yes. All the parades, all the support that he gave her when she was a newbie in politics and he was a veteran in politics, offering her condolences to all those who knew and loved him, talking about the hole that we have now in leadership in the Democratic Party and in Houston, in the state and the nation. And she went on about his oratory skills, which are world class, if you ask me. The way he spoke to people, the way he spoke at events, and she said that he would get into almost like a preacher-like mode. Oftentimes he was a preacher, and his church was the city of Houston, if I may.
Yes, you may. We're hearing that being a consistent theme as more friends and family and colleagues share their condolences. They mentioned what an incredible speaker he was. If you are just joining us, thank you for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Simmons alongside Ron Trevino, and we are on right now with breaking news, sharing the sad news of the passing of former Mayor Sylvester Turner and the now late Congressman
most recently
Turner.
Congressman,
Yes, he served
Turner.
2 terms as mayor from 2016 to 2024. We broke away from a phone interview we were having with a friend of the former mayor's, and we want to get back to, he was a former anchor here in Houston, knew Sylvester Turner very well, but is now a current anchor in Atlanta at our sister station. Jonathan Martin, are you still with us on the phone?
Yes, I am. Can you all hear me?
Yes, and we're sorry we had to break away from you, but we were hearing long words from Lina Hidalgo, Judge Lina Hidalgo, and if you could continue on your thoughts about your friend.
Yeah, I think what Judge Hidalgo said really, as you mentioned, Ron and Stephanie, just really hit it on the head. Mayor Turner had this relatability that I think was just spectacular. I would see him out in the community, and he would always talk about being from the fofo, And what he meant by that was being from Acres Home. And I loved, one of the things I think that stood out about him is that no matter where he went, no matter what office he was elected to, he always mentioned where he was from. And I think that's why he was so relatable to a lot of people in the community, because they could see themselves in him, someone who was from this small, in somewhat impoverished area who rose to be great. And so during my time in Houston, I really noticed that a lot of people really seemed to take to him because he could, speak with the best of them, but he also could also relate to the least of them, if you will, in any community. And I remember when I talked to him just maybe a few weeks ago, he was really excited about the new role in Congress. In fact, when he was leaving his time as mayor in Houston, he didn't want to leave. He had 8 full years as mayor, 2 terms, but he said, I'm not ready to leave just yet. So he was really excited about this new chapter of continuing public service. I said, don't you want to take a rest? You've done all of this work. He was not ready to rest. Even though he had dealt with some health complications, he wanted to keep going. He wanted to keep serving the people. That's just who Sylvester Turner was.
Yes, and he definitely wanted to honor his late friend, Sheila Jackson Lee, who had the seat for a long time, District 18. Jonathan Martin, we thank you for your time. We really appreciate it, and our condolences to you for your loss of your friend.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
And thank you for your memories of the former mayor. Thank you so much, Jonathan Martin. On the phone now, we have Yolanda Jones. Yolanda Jones, okay, we have you by Zoom. Give us your thoughts and reaction this morning.
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is Jolanda with a J, not Yolanda.
I'm sorry.
But no worries. I'm in shock. Congressman Turner was my congressperson, but we also worked together when he was in the legislature and I was on city council and when I was on the school board. And I heard what Jonathan said before, and I want to ditto what he said. I can remember when I was on the school board and, people talk about the TEA takeover. Well, prior to the TEA takeover, TEA was trying to take over HISD. And I reached out to a lot of elected officials to help advocate for TEA not taking over. And a lot of elected officials didn't show up at the school board meeting, but then Representative Turner showed up at the school board meeting and had something to say about it. He also, when he was mayor, he showed up. So when I called him, he showed up. And it was always for the people. And I heard Jonathan talking about how he always bragged about being from the FOFO. Well, if you didn't know what the FOFO was, it's the zip code that's associated with Acres Homes that he proudly represented. And he never forgot where he came from. Although he grew up poor, he ended up going to an Ivy League school. He ended up being a lawyer, and he always used his education as a way to advocate for people who lived like him. And he just never forgot where he came from. And when the Congresswoman died, he was friends of the family, and the family, they wanted him to succeed her. And so, like I say, I'm in shock. I definitely know that my Congressional District 18, has a void now. And our constituents, they need an advocate. So whoever fills his shoes, whoever fills Congresswoman Jackson Lee's shoes, have big shoes to fill. So I want to offer my condolences to his family, to Ashley, his daughter. He was a brand new grandfather. And I know he'd love that baby. We talked about it because we both became grandparents. And he said, even though he was traveling to DC, that he would always make sure he saw the baby. And so I know I miss him already. I know that the Houston community will miss him. I know that they will miss him in DC. I know his family will miss him. And I hate, as a new grandparent myself, that his grandson won't get to know him. But I know that when he became a grandfather, that he was very, very, very thankful for that. And so I just offer my condolences and I offer my prayers to his family. But here's what I know for certain. As a person who's experienced death at a very young age, my father died when I was young. And so the one thing I know is that we all will die one day. And the question is, when we're here, will people remember what you did? And there's not a doubt in my mind that he will not be forgotten, that he will be remembered. And there are so many people who have a better life because he was here.
So elegant, so poignant. Yolanda Jones, thank you so much for your kind words. And I love that you touched on the theme that anything is possible no matter where you came from. He came from Acres Homes, made it all the way to Harvard University, and he served his city proud. We thank you for your time, and sorry for the loss of your friend.
Yes, condolences to you,
Yes.
Yolanda Jones. Crying. A lot of people are crying today. All right, thank you so much for joining us.
Next, we have Bishop Dixon on the phone with us. Bishop James Dixon, good morning. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you well.
Thank you so much for taking time to share your thoughts with us about your friend. Can you tell us some of your memories?
Absolutely. Let me just, if I can just be coherent and cogent in my remarks. Sylvester Turner, a rare human being, an extremely rare public servant, and more than that, on a more personal level, a tremendous friend and more of a brother. My children calls him Uncle Sylvester. That's all they've known all their lives, and so today we are grieving beyond expression. A prince has fallen, and Houston and the nation will miss the rare life of Mayor Congressman Sylvester Turner.
Bishop Dixon, can you tell us about the last interaction that you had with Sylvester Turner?
Absolutely, and it was just a little over a week ago. His last public appearance speaking was at the Houston NAACP Annual Freedom Fund Gala. We were at the Hilton Americas Hotel, a packed room of people, and he was not listed on program, but Congressman Green and I insisted that Congressman Turner would have remarks. And he came up and, in his eloquent way, encouraged and inspired the congregation, the audience that night. And just prior to that, he was here at our church for a funeral, speaking at the funeral of another community servant, Tanya DeBose. And he, in his Sylvester Turner way, preached a sermon. In fact, I introduced him. I said, we're going to have another a preacher on to say Congressman Turner is here. So in the last week, I've been with him twice, hearing him speak, encouraging, inspiring in the way that only Sylvester Turner could do it.
We appreciate your time and memories, and loved that you called him a rare human being. Just so well put.
Yeah, Bishop Dixon, I have another question for you. In your latest visits with Sylvester Turner, he appeared weak. Did he share any details about his health struggles with you?
But Sylvester uniquely himself would say, man, I'm fine. I'm fine. That was his remark, and I would say, "Are you good?" I'm fine. I'm gonna be all right. That was his remark. He was very careful not to be a sympathy seeker, and the still-mindedness of Sylvester Turner would say, regardless of my personal condition, my personal agony, pain, I am who I am. He's a champion. He's a fighter. He's a prize fighter, of course. We've seen prize fighters who fight while they're wounded. And Sylvester Turner was of that ilk. He continued to fight forward no matter what he was dealing with. He kept his issues to himself as much as possible because he did not want the public's untimely sympathy. And so for us, it's a shock in many respects But again, he was battling his challenges while he continued to champion the cause of righteousness, justice, and lifting the oppressed. He was scheduled to be with us this past Sunday at our Houston United for Justice rally in City Hall, and they decided to rest up to get to D.C. to go represent the 18th Congressional District. He was forever vigilant on his post in spite of his personal predicament, and for that, we have to salute him. I'm so glad he died as a member of the United States Congress, representing that historic seat. But I'll tell you, even more personally, I'm so glad to have known him as a brother and as a friend.
All right. Well, thank you for your insight, Bishop James Dixon, and thoughts and prayers to you and your family and all those who loved Sylvester Turner. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on the phone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Personal and professional relationship with the former mayor. We want to go now to our own Len Cannon, our evening anchor. And Len, we were sharing some of your interviews with former Mayor Turner extensively, and he told you not that long ago about his health struggles.
Yes, exactly. Guys, I'm stunned, quite frankly. I was here knocked out with a cold, and my phone is blowing up, and I have no idea what's going on. So, as a matter of fact, I texted Sylvester Turner last night. I looked at the time, 8:27. I said, "Hey, I know you're at the president's address to Congress, and Al Green just got walked out of the Capitol. What was he saying?" Because I couldn't, before Al Green spoke, when he left, you couldn't hear what he was saying to the president when he was standing up. And so I said, I need Congressman Green's number. And he quickly responded, well, within 10 minutes, he's there in the Capitol. He responded and said, "Hey, here's his number." And I said, "Thanks." That was 8:27 last night. And so this is really shocking. As for his health, I interviewed him, and you may have seen it already, I'm not sure, but when he was announced that he was going to replace Sheila Jackson Lee, to be considered by the Democratic Party to replace her, he told me it was because, as you heard others mention, that the family, the Jackson Lee family, wanted him to do so. He felt that was the only reason he would do so. He had no intention immediately of going back into politics. I also interviewed him in his final weeks as mayor. A job he loved, a job that he frankly told me, and he was only half joking, he said, "Can I run again?" He did not want to leave City Hall. We laughed about it, but I knew he was half serious. When I went to talk to him about Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who of course died of cancer, I said to him, "Mr. Turner, people are concerned about your own health. You had a cancer scare a couple of years ago. How are you?" And he said that he was fine. I said, "Well, what did the doctor say?" He said, "They've cleared me. They say I'm okay." And, I don't know what we've covered so far here this morning, but he had osteosarcoma in his jaw, and he had the jaw bone removed, and then they put a piece of metal in there to replace it, and then he had radiation, and he told me the radiation did not interact well with the metal. That caused his jaw to swell. You may recall him having that lump on the side of his jaw. And he also had lost quite a bit of weight post having the diagnosis with cancer. And what I did notice, even in the past, and I talked to him 2 weeks ago on the phone, he never regained the weight. It was noticeable, and he never regained it. But he and I heard Bishop Dixon refer to this, but every time I ask him point blank, and last summer is when I asked him about the cancer, and are you okay, and do you have the energy to run for Congress? He said, "My doctor gives me the green light. I'm running like I normally do." And also keep in mind, when he had cancer, he, other than maybe a couple of weeks that he took for vacation, he didn't miss a day at City Council as mayor. So I think he prided himself on being present and available. We may never know how he was really feeling, because he put up a brave and encouraging front to the public, saying he was absolutely fine. So this is really shocking to hear, especially after reaching out to him last night.
Yes, I mean, I think the entire city is shocked, Len. I mean, when we found out this morning, we were getting hints that this might have happened. We hadn't confirmed it, and then we heard everybody at City Hall was crying. It is a shock, especially when you see him attending an event in Washington, D.C. last night, doing his job, representing District 18, you texting him, and the next thing you know, a few hours later, he's gone.
And it really speaks volumes to know that you had his personal cell number and you had this close personal relationship with him, and you cared about him as a friend, but also in the media. He always was honest with you and gave you wonderful interviews, and he chose you to interview him on several occasions, and that's something of note right there.
Yeah, it doesn't always happen. Sometimes as a journalist, you develop a relationship where people will trust you enough to come to you for things. And I had that relationship with Sylvester, and it's ironic. So, you know, I talked to him over the summer, not only about the loss of his friend Sheila Jackson Lee, about his health, but also I talked to him on you know, we do obits in advance in anticipation of people we know who are elderly or whatever and who are well known. And I talked to him about somebody he knew that was in bad shape. And so, you know, all this talk about other people and their health issues and their health struggles, and him saying, I'm fine, I'm all good. Doctor gives me the green light. So, I mean, it's just astounding to find out that, I mean, I don't know what the diagnosis will be. I don't know if it's because of the cancer that may be returned. He told us more than a year ago, because I interviewed him about the cancer. He talked to me first about the diagnosis after he had gone through treatment, and he talked about what it was like and what they put on his jaw. He had to wear a mask, and he, you know, he was never he was almost I don't know. He wasn't down. He was never like, oh, you know, I thought I might die. Never. He was just very upbeat and leaned into what's next.
Yeah.
He's a guy who ran hard. He ran fast. As I said, he liked being mayor. One time I interviewed him and I said, why do you want to be mayor again? I think he was running again. And keep in mind, when Sylvester Turner became mayor,
Len, we're going to have to interrupt you. Len, Mayor John Whitmire is speaking. Let's listen in.
Many folks, certainly many of you that are new to Houston, do not realize our history of being partners. I got elected at 23 years of age. He ran for county commissioner in 1981. I was involved. Then he went to the legislature, where for 24 years we worked as a team representing the same community. So I have nothing but fond memories of his partnership and our representing the same people. Politics is a tough business. You know, he ran for mayor 3 times. I witnessed each of them. And I think anyone familiar with that successful race would say I played a vital role, helped him get the police firefighter endorsement, which were really important. Other support, I think I did a pretty good job of firing up crowds for him, and certainly presenting him to Houston as the winning candidate on election night. We had disagreements, but they were never personal, and our families were close. You know, no one knows the pressures of public service in general until you serve, and no one knows the pressures of being mayor until you have the honor of being mayor. So Sylvester's on our mind today. In the city, there's a lot going on. My chief of staff is on his way to Austin. Stephen David's already up there, the assistant chief, to present our efficiency Ernst & Young report to the Doge committee at the State House. A lot of chatter about what we're presenting to the city and to council about our efficiencies. I hope most of you got an opportunity to see the presentation, read it. It's pretty outstanding proposal. We're going to be more efficient, use money more wisely, and really transform city government. It's going to take some time, but what we're attempting to do, and I would strongly suggest we're going to do, is unlike what's happened in any major city across the United States. We were in Washington last week. I say we, government relations, Josh and Stephen David met with the director of HUD, Secretary of HUD, Secretary of Transportation. They're interested. And as I believe, as other levels of government see what we're really earnestly trying to do, make major city government work and do it efficiently, we're going to get a lot of support and recognition. Now, that's not why we're doing it, but that's a result of asking department heads to do more, having a pathway for city employees to be successful, not necessarily having to be made a supervisor to use your skills and make such an impact, but it's been kicked down the road way too long. The Ernst & Young report now will be our map. We'll make some tough decisions in coming weeks, but it's going to benefit Houstonians. They'll get better services. That financial challenge is still there. But I want to emphasize, how many times have y'all heard the controller and others say, how are you going to pay for it? I knew where I was headed. It's not, I have been in office 50 years. Experience matters. And the question I always wanted to ask them, but I knew.
Mayor John Whitmire talked about a few city issues there, but before that, giving us his thoughts about the death of Congressman Sylvester Turner, who was a friend of the current mayor for many years. They may have had some political differences, but nothing personal. They were close friends. Their families were close. He talked about how Sylvester Turner ran for mayor several times, and that he, Whitmire, helped him get elected by forming this police and firefighters endorsement that helped Sylvester Turner become mayor.
One of the many city officials who's visibly shaken this morning and sharing his thoughts with the public. We do want to go now to Texas Representative Ron Reynolds, who serves Fort Bend County, among other places, and the Texas State House. Representative Reynolds, thank you for sharing your time with us. What can you tell us about your relationship with Congressman Turner?
Well, first of all, my heart is deeply heavy. Sylvester was a fraternity brother. He was a mentor. He was a church member of the Church Without Walls. I've known him. I've been in office for 14 years now, 8 terms, and I've known him long before I was a state representative. As an aspiring lawyer who went on to become the president of the Houston Lawyers Association, always went to Sylvester with guidance. He was a mentor and a coach. He helped inspire me to run for state representative. When I took over and I worked with him in the legislature, he was someone that I learned so much from. His passion, his dedication was relentless. I mean, he was someone that was always so passionate, the most articulate person in the House of Representatives. When he went to the front of back mic, people listened. It was like E.F. Hutton. When he talked, people listened. And he didn't just talk to be talked. He had substance, and he always fought for the underserved, not just his constituents, but children and elderly, the poor. Sylvester Turner was really a blessing. And then, of course, went on to be I think one of the greatest mayors in the city of Houston, and served so diligently when it came to the crisis that Houston faced. He was one of the leaders across the country that people looked at as a steady hand running the city through turbulent times. And always, you never saw him sweat. He was that cool, calm, and collective, had that great demeanor. He was a very proud, devoted father to Ashley, and just most recently, so excited about his grandchild. I remember he was just beaming with joy talking about it, and just being with him recently. We were talking to members, to young men and women within the top ladies of the distinction, the top teens, and inspiring them about public service and about giving back and volunteering. So Sylvester, oh my God, he will be missed. I'm still shocked that he passed away because I just recently talked to him, and I was just looking forward to talking to him about the State of the Union. And I'm just at a loss, but it's with a heavy heart that I'm speaking to you right now from the Capitol, where he served for many, many years.
You had a close personal relationship with him. Can you tell us a story that maybe the public wouldn't know about, even something light?
You know, a lot of people wouldn't know that he was really a jokester. He would joke about things. I mean, sometimes I remember, like, it'll be something I'm wearing. Some people know I like to stylish clothes, and he would say, "Man, where you steal them Gucci's from?" You know, I say, he said, "We only make $600 a month. You know, you can't afford those shoes," or something like that. He would just he had such a great wit and sense of humor. He was always positive and happy. And I remember talking to him, saying, you know, after he was the mayor and term limited, I said, "Hey, why don't you run for U.S. Senate? Why don't you run for this?" And he was not interested, you know, as was said before, about running again. And then, of course, when Sheila died, who was a mentor of mine as well, and a great friend of Sylvester's, I talked to him about possibly running for her seat. And at the time, he wasn't interested in running for it. When Sheila was running for mayor, I said, "Mayor, are you going to run for her seat? That'll be a great swap." And he's like, "No, I'm done. I'm going to do some other things right now." So Sylvester, he had. I want people to know that he had a great joy in life. He was a very devout Christian. He was devoted to going to church every Sunday. And I'll never forget one time, Pastor West, Ralph West, the pastor of the Church Without Walls, it was on Father's Day, had Sylvester speak at one service at one time, me speak at another service at another time. And I was like, thank God I don't have to go behind and speak at the same service as Reverend Sylvester Turner, because if you ever heard him, you knew he had a word. He was almost like a preacher, a politician preacher, because he could always command the right Bible verse at the right time and fit it into the right message. So no one ever wanted to go speak behind Mayor Sylvester Turner, Congressman Sylvester Turner. So yes. I want people to remember his wit, his charm, but most importantly, his love for the city, his love for the people that he represented. He really is gone, but he should never be forgotten. And I'm so happy that you all are devoting this time to share stories, because this man gave everything he had. I would also often tell him, even recently, make sure you get some rest. You know, I was concerned about his health. I'm okay. And every time I would see him, even 2 weeks ago, I said, "Are you getting rest?" Commissioner Ellis and I said, "We're gonna slow you down. You don't have to go anywhere." You know, and he kept running and running and running. But I don't think he would have it any other way. I think he wanted to go out giving. That's what God gifted him to do, and he sure used everything he had and gave his last breath
He certainly
Yes, sir.
was. He certainly was tireless. Okay, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your time from your business up in Austin. Texas Representative Ron Reynolds of Fort Bend County.
All right, we
Thank
want.
you.
Thank you, Representative. All right, we do want to go now to Air 11, flying for us over the city of Houston, showing some of the many flags. If we can see them in different shots, they're looking for them. But you will see once they find one of them right here on top of the building at half staff in honor of Congressman Turner and former mayor of the city of Houston, who passed away this morning.
As the city is now in mourning over one of its longtime leaders, that's for sure. All right, if you're just joining us, we have the sad news to give you that Representative Sylvester Turner, the former mayor of Houston, has died at the age of 70. He died last night in Washington, D.C. After attending the president's speech. He was taken to the hospital and he died. We don't know the cause, but we're getting a lot of reaction today, and from everybody we're speaking with, it's shock, and they all describe a man who was tireless in his devotion to city, state, and nation.
And that's the theme we're hearing over and over again. And someone who just spoke with him via text last night is our own Len Cannon. Len, sorry we had to cut you short earlier. You were mentioning many wonderful things about Congressman Turner. Can you tell us more about what you were saying with him last night?
No worries. When I heard that Whitmire was going to be speaking, I got it. I was listening to Ron Reynolds and I had to laugh because Sylvester Turner was relatively calm, straightforward when he addressed when there was an issue and he did news conferences and so forth. But when he spoke to an audience, he turned into a preacher. In fact, I joked one time at a breakfast event. I said, when you end this mayoral run, you can start your own church. And he laughed. And I'll take you back to the funeral of Sheila Jackson Lee, and that was Sylvester Turner, who remembering a friend, but very much in his comfort zone, talking in the way he was talking, quoting scripture, referring to Sheila Jackson Lee, saying, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." When I talked to him in the final weeks of his mayoral run, he was done in January 1st. I talked to him in November of that year. I said, "Mr. Mayor, what you going to do next?" He said, "I'm going to take a year off." I said, "Is politics in your future?" He goes, "I don't know. It depends on what the options are." Then when I said to him in that interview, I said, Sheila Jackson Lee at that time was running for mayor. If she becomes mayor, I couldn't even finish the sentence. He went, "No, I'm not interested in running. I don't want to be congressman. I don't want it." And so I was, as I said earlier when we were talking, that all changed when she passed away, and he felt it was his duty. Now, he told me, and you may have discussed this already, he said, "Len, I'm going to do 2 terms. That's 4 years in Congress." Mm-hmm. He said, "I'll be a bridge to some young blood, but because I have a lot of connections, I can step in, help represent the 18th district immediately because I know so many people, and then that's going to be it." And then I was kind of on watch. I was like, okay, politician says he's only going to do 2 terms, but we'll find out. That was going to be one of my questions to him down the road, like a year from now. It's like, hey, are you only going to do 2 terms? Another memory I have is, we may have shown the interview, he never seen him get as emotional as when I asked him when he last spoke to Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. He visited her in the hospital just days before she passed away. He could barely get through the interview. In fact, at one point he asked us to turn the camera off. But the part we did show, he got very emotional. Then later, maybe a few days later, I called him and I said, "Well, I thank you for sharing your thoughts." And he said, "Len, I have shed my last tear on television. I'm not doing that again." He was letting me know, no, That was
it-
just ugly.
Yeah.
He was messing with me, but it's again. I have to echo what everybody else has said. Given how energetic Turner was, and how much he really leaned into his job as a politician, first as a state rep for many, many years. You heard John Whitmire. I mean, they were together for more than 20 years in Austin. And proud alum of U of H, Harvard Law. In fact, he was going to go back to Harvard before Sheila Jackson Lee passed. He was planning to be a speaker and a teacher at the Kennedy School of Law at Harvard this past summer. And he kept telling me about his grandchild. My grandchild is coming. My grandchild is coming. So, of course, we know that happened. He also, want to just point out one final thing. He was working on a book when I talked to him over the summer, and the title was something to the effect of Coming Through the Storm. He was proud of having guided Houston through, and you guys know this, all the natural disasters that the city went through while he was in office. You name it. It was Harvey. It was tax day flood. It was, one thing after another.
And the pandemic as well. And the pandemic.
And the pandemic.
Yes.
Guys, there's been so much stuff going on. The pandemic to me is almost a mirage. I like, really, did that happen? But yes, you're right, a lot. And so he was very proud of that. And and that's why he leaned into that with his book. Now, whether somebody will pick that up and finish his story, I don't know. We'll certainly, we can talk to his daughter and see what happens. But yes, he was working on the book.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Len Cannon, thank you so much for your insight. And I know this came as quite a shock to you as you just were texting with him last night, but we appreciate you and your time this morning.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much, Len. We'll be talking to you later. All right. If you're just joining us, the sad news today is the city's reacting to the death of the former mayor, Sylvester Turner, who was a congressman, and he died last night in Washington, D.C.
We don't know the cause of death yet, but we do know he was dealing with a cancer scare and had been getting radiation and had surgery back in 2022. We noticed some changes in his physical appearance over the years, but he kept telling everyone, I'm good, I'm doing okay, I'm doing okay. Joining us now is Marcelino Benito. And Marcelino, what more can you share with us?
Well, guys, I think we can't overstate just how shocking this is to this whole community, especially also members of the media who regularly communicated with the congressman. I started getting texts from friends early this morning. I thought it was some sort of joke or scam that people post that certain people have died. Sometimes you see them circulating on social media. That's what I thought this was. My first contact was to reach out to the former Harris County judge, Ed Emmett, who served alongside Sylvester Turner for several years, during Harvey in particular. They had a very unique and close relationship, friendship. And he was just shocked, and he confirmed to me that he'd heard the news that Sylvester Turner had died. He's in Austin right now doing official business, advocating for some causes that are personal to him. But he hopped on a Zoom call, and I spoke to him just a few minutes ago about the loss of the congressman.
Judge, I'd just like to get your reaction to the news you heard this morning. How did you find out, and how are you feeling?
Early morning, I got a phone call from a mutual friend. Was immediately shocked and saddened, because my last conversation with Sylvester, or the mayor, or Speaker Pro Tem, or whatever we want to call him these days, or Congressman, I thought he was in remission and things were going pretty well. But he will be missed, and all politics aside, working with him during Harvey, during his term as mayor, but even going back, he was so helpful dealing with mental health issues when he was in the legislature, and I was county judge, and we were trying to create mental health diversion projects and things like that. And if you go back and look, he was one of those people that you could disagree with politically, but personally, he was a good friend.
Does an experience that both of you shared, leading large areas, I mean, you were leading one of the largest counties in the country, he's leading one of the largest cities in the country, during a time like Harvey and other crises that you guys navigated together, but in particular Harvey, just sharing that leadership pressure, I don't know if you want to use the word burden at times, but just sharing that experience, did it bring you guys together in a way that only you and him understood what that was like?
Probably. I think, not to get too historic on you here, but Oliver Wendell Holmes, had a quote about those who had gone through the Civil War and said, "We have shared the incommunicable experience of war." Well, Sylvester and I shared the incommunicable experience of Harvey and the disaster. But what made it different with him, and hopefully with me too, was it was never about him. It was always about, okay, what are we going to do to help those people out there who their homes are flooded? And that's all they ever thought about.
Guys, I think that last bite there really encapsulates who Sylvester Turner was. He was a Democrat, Ed Emmett, a Republican, opposite parties, but they knew how to work together. They established a friendship, and everyone we've heard from this morning repeating the same thing. He could break across party lines, form relationships, get things done. One other part of that interview that we'll hopefully play later today, the judge says when he found out that Sylvester Turner was considering running for the late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee's seat, he called him up and he jokingly said, "Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this to your life again?" And the late Congressman now said, "Yes, I need to serve. I'm a public servant, and now's the time I need to get back in the arena." That wasn't his plan, and of course he did. And we should just quickly note on a personal note, guys, I've known Sylvester Turner since I started here at KHOU in 2014. I first met him at 2015. He came by the old Allen Parkway studio for a debate that we were hosting as he was trying to become the mayor. Super gracious. I interviewed him that night, and gracious throughout, as you guys have mentioned, throughout the morning.
Absolutely.
Always asking about every time I hit a milestone in my life, he asked about it. When I was getting married, he was happy about it. When I had a baby, he was happy about it. And particularly as of late, when I lost my mother almost 2 years ago, he reached out after seeing the story about her death, and was very gracious about that too. So definitely will be missed.
That's the kind of person he was. I mean, I'd be at an event and I didn't even know he was there, and he'd come tap on my shoulder and give me a hug, the whole thing. That's the kind of
He's
experience.
a people person.
Yeah, that's the kind of experience I think so many Houstonians had with Sylvester Turner.
Yeah.
To remember the personal things about your life as a journalist, it really speaks to the kind of man he was.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys.
And we're all remembering him today. Thank you so much, Marcelina Benito.
All right, we do have tributes and condolences continuing to pour in this morning, so we want to go to those. Congressman Craig Goldman, who represents the Fort Worth area, just shared this on X, saying, quote, "Sylvester Turner wasn't just a tremendous state rep, mayor, and congressman. He was a tremendous friend. He was passionate, extremely smart, and respected by all who knew and worked with him." Texas lost a legend today.
Looks like a pic that could have been taken yesterday.
Yes.
Harris County Precinct 4 Constable Mark Herman is offering his condolences, saying in part, while Mayor Sylvester Turner worked hand in hand with Constable Herman, keeping the citizens of Kingwood safe, rest in peace, sir. Well-known civil rights attorney Ben Crump just posted this tribute saying, rest in power, Representative Sylvester Turner, a lifelong fighter for the people of Texas. He carried the torch from the state legislature to Houston mayor and finally to Congress, succeeding the late Representative Sheila Jackson Lee. His legacy of service won't be forgotten.
And here's a statement from the Houston Firefighters Union, which had a rocky relationship with Turner. Remember, they went on to court over pay raises for firefighters. Union President Marty Langton shared this statement. Quote, "The Houston Professional Firefighters Association extends its condolences to the family, friends, and colleagues of U.S. Representative and former Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner. While our union had a deeply contentious relationship with him and his decisions had a profound impact on Houston firefighters, we also recognize his decades of service to the city and the country. We offer our sympathies to those mourning his loss."
Here's a tribute from the Democratic Black Caucus of Texas saying they join Harris County in mourning the passing of Congressman and former Mayor of Houston, Sylvester Turner, who passed away overnight. They say a longer statement is forthcoming, but wanted to offer condolences now.
And here's a statement from Harris County Attorney Christian Menefee, who shared several photos of himself with Turner at various events over the years. Part of his lengthy tribute says, in part, quote, "Turner epitomized remaining calm under pressure, guiding our city through natural disasters and crises with steady leadership. He worked tirelessly to serve every community, ensuring that those too often overlooked had a voice. He stood firm in his convictions regardless of whether they were popular, because he understood that true leadership isn't about convenience, it's about doing what's right.
He certainly was calm under pressure. No one will doubt that. Now here's a statement from Turner's former counterpart in Austin, Mayor Kirk Watson. He says, "Hearing that my friend Sylvester Turner died makes me very sad. I was always touched by his compassion for people, and I greatly admired his eloquence in working to help those who counted on him for help. Sylvester was a remarkable man with the true heart of a public servant. He was a friend. I will miss laughing with him, and we'll all miss his commitment to doing good."
Commissioner Leslie Briones of Harris County Precinct 4 released a lengthy tribute to Turner. Here's part of what she had to say, quote, "He loved to remind us that in Houston, if you can dream it, you can do it." His life demonstrated the truth of those words. He dedicated his career to serving the city he loved, and he never wavered in his conviction that every Houstonian deserves a fair shot. For me, Sylvester Turner was a mentor, a friend, and a partner in delivering progress. He didn't just serve, he united. He didn't just lead, he inspired. He knew that real change doesn't happen in isolation. It happens when people come together, roll up their sleeves, and do the hard work. And that's exactly what we did. I am forever grateful for his example, his partnership, and his work to improve the lives of Harris County residents.
Congressman Turner was just in Houston this past weekend to take part in the rodeo parade. Look at this picture here. Rodeo Houston sharing this photo on X. Look at that beautiful picture. We are deeply saddened by the passing of U.S. Congressman and former Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner. His leadership, dedication, and service to the Houston community will leave a lasting impact. Turner was an ardent supporter and friend of the rodeo. Look at him in that cowboy hat. His support and commitment to the rodeo's mission will never be forgotten. Beautiful picture.
Beautiful. And here's a post from the Houston Texans saying in part, quote, "His decision or dedication to our city and imprint on our community will always be remembered. Our heartfelt condolences are with Congressman Turner's family, friends, and all who were impacted by his leadership."
All right, we're just getting all the tributes coming in. That's just a handful of what we've seen and heard this morning. We've had live interviews with politicians and others who knew Sylvester Turner. They're all voicing their shock because some of them communicated with him just hours ago, last night.
Yes, our own Len Cannon was texting with the former mayor and congressman because he was in Washington, D.C. for the joint session of Congress speech by President Trump. Yeah. So he was there. We've learned that he fell ill, went to the hospital, and we learned of his passing earlier this morning. In fact, there were whispers that something was happening at City Hall. Perhaps they learned of his passing before us. And then right at 9 o'clock to open the City Council meeting, current Mayor John Whitmire announced the news and then had some sentimental words about his relationship with Sylvester Turner.
Yeah, they were good friends for many years. They didn't always agree politically, but there was no personal animosity there at all. Their families were close and everything. Sylvester Turner serving over 2 decades in the Texas House and mayor of Houston for 8 years, and then going to Congress, starting his tenure there in just January.
Yes, only served a couple of months. Yeah. Yes, but he was cleared to run for the district after the passing of Sheila Jackson Lee, and like we said, he had a full schedule this past week, rodeo events over the weekend, and then once again in D.C. Just yesterday and this morning. We are getting reaction from friends, family, former colleagues about former Mayor Turner's passing, including Jean Wu. Take a listen.
I'm devastated. Sylvester was more than just a colleague for me. He was my advisor. He was my mentor. He was my personal hero. when I started, not even as a legislator, as a staffer back in '05, there were only two names that I knew before coming to the work here, and that was Symphonia Thompson and Sylvester Turner, because they were people who were outspoken for fighting for their communities and defending the poor and the working class and anybody who got stepped on. My favorite picture from all my years in the legislature will still always be from my first session. It's me sitting down next to Sylvester at his desk on the floor, working on a bill, looking for points of orders. To Ashley and the rest of the Turner family, thank you so much for sharing such an amazing person with us. Thank you for everything you've sacrificed and given. To Sylvester, you're my brother, and I'll always love you.
Emotional words there from Representative Jean Wu. I mean, so many people are getting emotional today because that was the kind of relationship they had with Sylvester Turner as a mentor, as a friend, as a fellow leader here in the city of Houston.
And people are so verklempt this morning because his death obviously came as quite a shock. We know a few years ago he was diagnosed with cancer, and then in the same year announced cancer-free. He did have radiation, chemo, and underwent surgery, and then he was cleared to even run for District 18 after the passing of Sheila Jackson Lee. So everyone was asking him. They noticed physical changes in his appearance as of late, but he said, I'm okay, and once again was even traveling to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, representing District 18 last night. We have reaction from City Hall. Let's begin with Carolyn Shabazz, the City Councilwoman.
Well, actually, when I saw it, I was opening my phone and I looked down and I read the text and I was like, no. And I immediately called Mayor Pro Tem, who confirmed it. And what I can say is it's a tremendous shock. You know, life is filled with swift transition. You just never know what you're going to hear day by day. That's why it's important to live your life as if it could be the last time that you see someone. What I remember most about him was his personality and how personable he was. There was not a time that we were not in the public arena that he didn't talk to people and embrace their issues. And certainly he would remember, in a lot of cases, those concerns, and he would move accordingly. And so we didn't always agree, but most of the time we did. But at the end of the day, we had a tremendous love and respect for each other, that we could share a laugh. And the last time I saw him was probably about a week and a half ago. I was at a meeting and we were leaving, and I mentioned to him that this friend that we both know had had a stroke and that she wasn't far from there. And he said, I'm gonna go by there today. He got there before I did, but that's the kind of person he was. In my personal life, he helped my family with a personal crisis. My younger brother was terminally ill, and we were having difficulty getting him into a medical facility. And he stepped in to help us to be able to do that, to give my brother quality of life before he passed. And so one of the most important things about being elected is you must have a love, a true love for people, and have the common touch. He certainly had that. He has a new grandbaby who will be able to read about her grandfather and see him. It's a tremendous loss that she won't be able to feel his hugs again, because he loved her tremendously. And so this is a great loss. He was a family man first, then the community, then city, state, and then most recently our national government. But certainly he was the best person for the job. We never know when we will be called home, and I'm glad that he was given the opportunity to serve until his final breath.
Not many people know how close Sylvester and I was. I was in the Senate 40 years. He was a state representative in my district for 24. No one's introduced me more in public than Sylvester Turner. No one's introduced him more in public than John Whitmire. We've been together in good times and bad times. He asked me to speak at his mother's funeral. I was there when Ashley was born. He was there when Whitney and Sarah were born. As recently as 2 weeks ago, we were together as friends, as public servants, installing F.N. Williams II in Acres Home a week ago Sunday. We made sure that we were both in the same picture with the family. We had tremendous influence on each other as we were young elected officials. He and I both loved Houston, we loved Texas, and this great country.
Mayor John Whitmire with a heavy heart, obviously, talking about his friend, colleague, Sylvester Turner, the one who preceded him as mayor, passing away last night at the age of 70. But again, so many comments, like what the mayor was saying, just all the stories that we're hearing from people who worked with him, who learned from him, who were mentored by Sylvester Turner.
Yes, we keep hearing that theme over and over. Someone who was born and raised in Houston, grew up in Acres Homes, and made it all the way as a graduate of Harvard University, as well as the University of Houston. So many accolades, and such a respected man in politics and also as a friend, and brand new grandfather. He's leaving behind a grandson, but he did get to meet his grandson, and quite a family man.
So shocking for so many of us here in the Houston area. Of course, we're going to have a lot more on the life of Sylvester Turner and the reaction to his death coming up on KHOU 11 News at noon. Till then, I'm Ron Trevino along with Steph Simmons.
Thanks for watching.